What if everything you thought you knew about Princess Diana's death was wrong? What if she didn't die that night? What if she actually walked out of the ambulance alive and they made me swear I would never tell a soul? I can still feel the weight of that secret pressing down on me every day. The world has been lied to, and I'm the only one who knows the truth. But what happened next? That's when everything started to unravel. I wasn't supposed to talk about this, but I can't carry it anymore. The secret, the truth, it's been eating away at me. The world thinks they know what happened, but they're wrong. I've kept quiet for so long, not because I wanted to, but because I was forced to. You don't just walk away from something like this, not without consequences. But the truth is too heavy and I can't hold it in anymore. Maybe you need to know what really happened that night. I wasn't anyone special, just someone who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But the moment I saw her, alive, everything changed. And I couldn't look away, not even if I tried. It was late, the night Princess Diana's car crashed. It feels like it was just yesterday, but it wasn't. There's a reason I never went public with what I saw. It was a mistake, a stupid mistake to even think I could handle this on my own. But now, it's too late to stay silent. I can't pretend anymore. I was in Paris trying to get home when the chaos started. Sirens wailing, people running. It wasn't hard to figure out something had gone wrong. I don't even know how I ended up there, in the middle of it all. Some part of me thinks it was fate. The other part? Well, that part's still in denial. Still wishing it had never happened. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Diana was supposed to be dead. That's what they told us, right? That's what everyone believed. That's what I believed. Until I saw her. When I first laid eyes on her, I thought I was imagining it. I couldn't be sure. Was I seeing things? I mean, how could I not? The scene was pure madness. The ambulance doors swung open and the chaos spilled out onto the streets. Paramedics, police, the crowd of onlookers. But there, amidst all the confusion, I saw her. Her eyes flickered. Her chest rose just a little, but enough to make me stop breathing for a second. And then I saw it. I saw her hand, weak, but moving, alive. It didn't make sense. None of it did. How was she still alive? How had they missed it? The whole world was being lied to, and I was the only one who knew. The shock of it paralyzed me for a moment. My feet wouldn't move. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it might break through my chest. I looked around, but everyone else was too busy focusing on the next steps, on getting her into the hospital. No one else seemed to notice what I was seeing, but I saw it. I can still feel the confusion inside me. The disbelief. I should have turned away. I should have pretended I didn't see anything. But I couldn't. There was something about that moment. Something I couldn't shake. It felt like I was holding a secret that would change everything, and that feeling, it never left me. When she was finally taken into the hospital, that's when the real nightmare began. I thought maybe I was just caught up in the chaos, that maybe I was imagining things. But something wasn't right. The people around me, the paramedics, the hospital staff, there was a calmness to them that didn't match the situation. They weren't acting like they were fighting to save a life. It was as if they already knew. And then I saw them, the officials, the ones who controlled the narrative. They were everywhere. But no one was talking. No one was willing to say what had really happened. And that's when I started to wonder if I was the only one who knew. I couldn't trust anyone. I couldn't even trust myself. The truth I'd seen was too disturbing, too wrong to speak out loud. But they knew. The higher-ups, the ones in charge. They knew exactly what had happened, and they weren't about to let the world find out. I never thought I would be involved in something like this, but I was. It wasn't by choice. I didn't have a say in the matter. When I realized what I had seen, the truth that no one else knew, I thought I'd be able to walk away. I thought I could pretend that it didn't matter, that maybe I had imagined it all. But no, I hadn't imagined it. And that's when I started to get scared. It wasn't until someone pulled me aside that the weight of it all hit me. A figure, someone with authority, looked me in the eye and told me I had no right to speak about what I had seen. That if I said anything, there would be consequences. They made me swear to silence. No one was supposed to know what I knew. I thought it was a bad dream. I thought that surely someone else had seen what I saw, that someone would step forward and tell the truth. But it never happened. And the more time passed, the more I realized I couldn't undo what I had seen. I couldn't erase it from my mind, no matter how hard I tried. The weight of that secret stayed with me, and I began to wonder if I'd made the right decision by staying silent. But it was too late to go back. The worst part, it wasn't just a lie. It wasn't just a cover-up. I had seen something that changed everything. And now, here I am, telling you this. It feels like the only way to make it stop. To stop carrying this weight alone. But that's the thing about secrets like these. They don't stay buried. Not forever. And what happens next? Well, that's when everything changes. I stepped inside, and the door clicked softly behind me, shutting out the chaotic noise of the outside world. The room before me was surprisingly warm, the kind of warmth that promises comfort, like stepping into a familiar home. The soft glow of light filtered through the heavy curtains, casting a golden hue over everything. It should have been comforting, welcoming even, but something about the stillness in the air unsettled me. The silence felt too perfect, as if the space itself had been held in suspended animation, waiting for someone to break it. I glanced around the room. The walls were a muted shade of cream, meticulously painted with no imperfections, no flaws. Each surface was spotless, polished to a shine that felt almost obsessive. The furniture was tastefully arranged, not a single item out of place. A large leather armchair sat by the window, inviting me to sit. Yet I couldn't shake the odd feeling that I shouldn't be here. The scent in the air was fresh, like a mixture of lavender and something faintly metallic, like the way the air smells after it rains, but sharper, more artificial. It should have felt soothing, like a soft embrace, but instead, it gnawed at me, like something hidden beneath the surface. I moved deeper into the room, my footsteps muffled by the thick rug underfoot. But even the quiet seemed wrong, like the room was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The floor beneath me creaked, but not in the way you expect from an old house. It was the sound of freshly waxed wood, the kind that only creaks when it's been polished too many times. It was unnerving, like the house had been waiting for someone to arrive, but no one had dared to enter for years. There was a long hallway leading deeper into the house, its doors closed, most of them locked. I could feel the space around me growing colder, though the temperature hadn't dropped. It was a chill that seemed to come from somewhere inside my chest. I could feel my body tense up as I stood there, like a small part of me was trying to warn me, but I didn't want to listen. The room was filled with the faint hum of something mechanical. At first I thought it was the fridge in the kitchen, but when I turned around, the kitchen was empty. The hum came from nowhere, floating through the walls like an invisible presence. My gaze wandered to the framed photographs lining the walls. They were all of people, but none of them looked alive. Their eyes, though captured in perfect detail, seemed to stare straight through me. Not at me. Cold, unblinking. I couldn't help but shift from foot to foot, my movements slightly erratic, like I was trying to find a comfortable place in a room that refused to let me settle. There was no reason for it. I just couldn't stand still. Couldn't bring myself to rest. Every time I moved, the weight of the air seemed to grow heavier. It was as if the room itself was pressing down on me. I ran my hand along the back of the chair beside the window, my fingers brushing over the smooth, cool leather. It felt colder than I expected, almost as though it hadn't been used in a while. The chair itself was pristine, immaculate, yet it somehow felt abandoned. I couldn't understand why it felt like this room had been lived in, but at the same time, it hadn't. It didn't feel like a space meant for warmth or relaxation, despite the cozy furnishings. It was a house caught between life and death, frozen in time. I tried to push the thoughts from my mind to focus on something, anything that would make sense of it. But the unease lingered, curling around me like a thick fog, suffocating me with every breath. The windows, though covered with thick curtains, had an odd sheen to them. Sunlight filtered through, casting strange shadows on the walls. The shadows were too sharp, almost as if they were trying to form something more, something that shouldn't be there. I blinked, my heart pounding, trying to shake off the feeling, but it didn't leave. It only grew more persistent, like a presence waiting just beyond the edge of my vision, something I couldn't quite place. I didn't want to admit it, but I felt watched, not in the way you do when someone is standing in the room with you, but something deeper, a pressure, like there was an eye trained on me from every corner, every inch of space. But when I turned to look, nothing was there. I could feel the weight of the silence pressing in on me, suffocating, but I couldn't quite put my finger on why. I felt like I was supposed to feel welcome, but instead, I felt like I was intruding. I moved slowly towards the far side of the room, my eyes darting to every corner, every shelf, the books stacked neatly on the table, the vase of fresh flowers on the mantel. Everything was perfect. So perfect it was unsettling. The flowers in the vase didn't seem to wilt. They hadn't been touched, but they were alive, vibrant, as if time itself had stopped for them. Yet their colors seemed a little too bright, the stems too straight, too symmetrical. I paused, my breath catching in my throat. There was something off about the flowers. Something not quite right. The longer I stared at them, the more unnatural they seemed, their presence almost too perfect. I felt a shiver run down my spine. I should have turned away, should have ignored the strange feeling creeping over me, but I couldn't. The air in the room grew thicker, heavier, as if every second I spent in this space was drawing me closer to something I wasn't meant to understand. I could hear the hum again, louder this time. It was almost like a whisper just below the threshold of hearing. It was coming from somewhere deeper in the house, a place I couldn't see but knew existed. I felt a sudden pull, an urge to follow it, but I stayed rooted to the spot, frozen by an inexplicable sense of dread. Then, just as I was about to move, a sound broke through the silence, a soft scratching noise, faint but distinct. It was coming from the far corner of the room behind a closed door. I stood there, my body stiff, my mind racing. Was it just my imagination? Number... It was real. I had heard it. But what was it? I took a deep breath, my heart hammering in my chest. Something was wrong. Something was hiding just beneath the surface of this perfect, sterile space. But what? That was the question I couldn't answer. But I would soon find out. At first, I couldn't place it. Something in the air felt heavy. The conversation around me seemed too loud, too forced. Everyone was smiling, but there was something empty about it. The laughter echoed off the walls. Too bright, too rehearsed. It was as though they were performing a script, but no one knew exactly what the play was supposed to be. The more I listened, the more I felt like I was an outsider, like I'd walked into a room that didn't want me there. Yet no one would say it aloud. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, trying to engage in the conversation. A few people chatted casually about the latest news, but their words felt like static in the back of my mind. I could almost hear the hum of the house beneath everything else, a low, constant vibration that made the air feel thick, almost suffocating. I kept telling myself it was nothing, just nerves, but the weight of it wouldn't lift. Then I noticed him. A man I hadn't spoken to yet, sitting across the room with a drink in his hand. His eyes met mine for a split second. Then something shifted. His smile faltered and his gaze dropped quickly, almost too quickly. It wasn't just a glance. He paused, a split second too long, as if calculating something, as if weighing a decision. It wasn't a friendly look, not like the others had given me. It was a warning, or maybe a challenge. I couldn't tell. But I could feel it deep in my bones. I turned away before he could notice me staring, my skin prickling as though I had been caught in some silent exchange that no one else could see. I didn't want to focus on him any longer, but my mind wouldn't let it go. His face, his eyes, everything about that moment felt wrong. The room was starting to feel too small, and I was growing hyper-aware of every little detail. The polished glasses on the table seemed to glint too sharply, the wine in them shimmering like blood under the light. The laughter that had once seemed pleasant now felt jarring, like something desperate trying to sound real. I excused myself from the table and walked towards the hallway, hoping to clear my head. The further I moved away from the crowd, the more the house seemed to close in on me. There was a door, tucked away at the far end of the corridor, just behind a velvet curtain. No one had paid any attention to it. At least, that's what I thought, until my eyes kept drifting back to it. It was a strange thing, this door. It didn't stand out, not exactly, but something about it pulled at me. It was the only door in the house that wasn't open. The others were either ajar or occupied, but this one stood alone, locked. Not locked in a way that made sense for a place like this, just locked enough to be deliberate, like it wasn't supposed to be opened, like it was waiting for something or someone. I stood at the edge of the hallway, my hand almost touching the curtain. but I couldn't bring myself to move it aside. There was something about the lock, the way it was placed. No key around, no sign of who could have put it there. The air felt heavier here, colder. I glanced back over my shoulder, but no one seemed to notice. The guest's strange look crossed my mind again, and I felt my breath quicken. Was I just imagining things? Or was there something more to that look? Something more to this house? I stepped away from the curtain and turned back toward the room where the others were. As I walked back, I noticed something odd about the staff. They were hovering, always just in the background, but never too far away. Every time I glanced around, I saw one of them standing, watching but not engaging. They were always a few feet away, their expressions too polite, their movements too smooth. It was as if they were waiting for something to happen, yet never taking part in anything. I tried to brush it off as nothing. Maybe they were just hired help. But the feeling in my stomach didn't go away. It got worse the longer I stayed in the room. And then there was the host, the celebrity whose home I was in. He was pacing, walking in circles with his hands clasped behind his back. His eyes never met mine. They didn't meet anyone's, actually. They just moved around, darting, like they were searching for something, but never quite finding it. Every time he spoke, his voice sounded flat, like he was reading lines from a script, and not a very good one at that. His smile, though wide, never reached his eyes, which remained cold, distant. He asked a question about my work, something mundane, but it felt rehearsed, like he had been trained to ask it and nothing more. I caught myself nodding, but it felt like I was agreeing with something that didn't need an answer. His eyes flicked briefly toward the hallway where I had been, a sharp glance, before looking away again, almost too quickly. Like he was aware of something, but didn't want to acknowledge it. I had the distinct feeling that I was being watched, not by the others, but by him. The way he moved, the way he didn't seem to care about the conversation, like he was just waiting for the right moment to act. His posture stiffened as he glanced again at the hallway, his expression unreadable. I felt my pulse quicken. Something was off. I tried to shake off the growing discomfort, but the more I tried to ignore it, the stronger it became. There was no denying it anymore. This place, these people, they were hiding something. They were acting like everything was normal, but it wasn't. It couldn't be. Then, just as I was about to take a step closer to the others, the lights flickered. It was brief, but noticeable. The room dimmed for a second, and when the light came back, it felt different. Colder, harder. I could hear the hum again, louder this time, but now it had a different edge to it. Like something was watching, listening. I turned back to the door in the hallway, the one that had been locked, and for a moment, it felt like the house was holding its breath, waiting for me to make the next move. But that was just the beginning. At first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me. The air in the house, the strange glances, the odd things I couldn't quite place. Maybe I was just paranoid. After all, I'd never been in a house this grand, this pristine. But tonight, something felt different. Something I couldn't ignore. And then it happened. I was standing near the window, watching the dark stretch over the grounds outside, the garden swallowed by shadows. The faint mechanical hum of the house filled the space around me. And for a brief moment, I almost thought it was calming. It had become so constant, so normal, that I almost didn't mind it. Almost. But then the lights flickered again. Just once. Long enough to make me pause. It wasn't like the usual dimming that comes with a poorly maintained electrical system. No, this was deliberate. A brief stutter in the house's steady rhythm, as if it was holding its breath, waiting. I turned toward the others, trying to shake off the growing unease that tightened around my chest. But something wasn't right with them either. I caught another glimpse of the man across the room, the one who had given me that unsettling look earlier. His smile was gone, replaced by something far darker. He wasn't staring at me this time. He was staring at the door, the one at the end of the hallway, the one I had noticed earlier. For a moment, I thought he was going to say something to break the silence that hung heavily between us. But he didn't. He just stared. And the way his hand twitched, almost like he was fighting the urge to reach out, made my stomach churn. I looked away quickly, feeling the weight of his gaze like a physical presence behind me. But as I shifted my eyes, my gaze fell on something else. Something I hadn't noticed before. The door. It was open, just a crack, but it hadn't been open before. I knew it hadn't been open before. My heart skipped a beat. The hallway had been completely empty. The door locked. I had checked. I was sure of it. I didn't move at first. I didn't want to, but my feet betrayed me. My body moved on its own, as if the house was pulling me toward it, urging me to investigate. Each step was heavier than the last, like I was walking through water. My breath came in shallow, anxious bursts. I reached the edge of the hallway, my eyes still fixed on the open door. The soft glow of the lamps in the room behind me felt distant now, as though they were fading into a dream. The door seemed to loom larger, closer, more inviting and repelling all at once. There was something wrong with the air. It was cold, but not from any open window. No, this was a different kind of cold. A sharp, unnatural chill that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I was almost there when I heard it. A faint, scraping sound, like something dragging across the floor. At first I thought it was just the old house settling, but then it came again. Closer, a soft, rhythmic scraping that seemed to move closer with every step I took. I stopped. My breath caught in my throat as the sound grew louder, more distinct. It wasn't the house settling. It wasn't the wind. No, this was something else. Something far worse. I glanced back over my shoulder. No one was paying attention to me anymore. The party continued, their voices distant, floating in and out of focus. But the house was different now. It felt like it was breathing. Slow, deliberate, like it was alive. I took another step forward. This time, the door creaked, just a little. It was barely audible, but it felt like the loudest sound in the world. The scraping stopped. I froze. For a split second, everything went still. The hum of the house, the sound of the conversation from the other room, the scraping, all of it disappeared. The silence was thick, suffocating. And then, without warning, the door slammed shut. My heart raced. My chest tightened as the air seemed to pull away from me. I was rooted to the spot, unable to move, unable to breathe. For a moment, I thought I might faint, but somehow, I forced myself to look. There was no one there. The hallway was empty. The door was locked again. The house fell back into its unsettling silence. I turned quickly, But this time, there was no turning away. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach now. Something was very, very wrong. I had walked too far into this place, into this mystery, and I couldn't back out. The feeling of being watched, the unease, the strange behavior, it all made sense now. It wasn't just paranoia. It wasn't just bad vibes. The house was alive in a way I hadn't understood, and now it was pulling me deeper into its web. I glanced back at the others, trying to shake off the cold creeping through my bones, but it was too late. The moment I saw their faces, the fear hit me. It wasn't just the staff. It wasn't just the guests. It was something else, something that was connected to the house itself. They were all part of it. Everyone here was trapped just like me. My heart pounded, and I had to force myself to breathe. I was not going crazy. I knew what I had heard. I knew what I had felt. But I couldn't explain it. Not yet. But I knew one thing for sure. Something far darker than I had imagined was unfolding, and I was standing in the middle of it. Then came the real shock. I wasn't sure when it started, this gnawing feeling at the edge of my mind. It crept in slowly, like a shadow stretching just out of sight. But it was always there. At first, I could convince myself it was nothing. Just paranoia. Just stress from being in a place that felt more like a prison than a home. But that night, something changed. Something broke inside me, and I could no longer pretend I was just imagining it. I didn't want to believe it, but the truth was undeniable. The house was playing with my mind. I was standing in the same hallway where I had seen that locked door, the one that had appeared and vanished. And now the air felt heavier, almost oppressive. The quietness was suffocating. No hum from the lights, no soft echo of distant voices. It was just the sound of my own breathing. Too loud, too panicked. The silence had become an entity of its own, one that pressed down on me with every breath I took. I moved, slowly, cautiously, toward the end of the hallway, where the strange, locked door had once stood. Now there was no sign of it. It was just a bare wall, smooth, unbroken, almost too perfect. My fingers brushed against it, searching for any sign that it had ever been there. It was solid, no cracks, no indication that something so strange had even happened. But I knew. I could feel it. The memory of that door was real. It hadn't been a hallucination. Suddenly, I wasn't sure what was real anymore. I reached for the light switch on the wall, feeling a sharp pang of unease ripple through me. My hand trembled as I flicked it. The room around me stayed dim. Just the faintest glimmer from the outside moonlight creeping in through the curtains. The whispering began. At first, I thought it was the wind, or maybe my own thoughts playing tricks on me, but it was too deliberate, too clear. I froze in place, heart thudding painfully in my chest. The voice was soft, barely audible, but it was there. It came from behind me. No, not behind me. More like it was inside my head, in the space between my ears. A voice that seemed to shift, bend, and stretch through the air like smoke. Don't go. It's not real. I spun around, panic rising in my throat. There was no one behind me. No one at all. Just the same empty hallway. The same eerily silent house, but I wasn't alone. I could feel it now. Something was watching. Something far darker than I had imagined. I took a step back, my mind racing. What was happening? Why was I hearing voices? Was I losing my grip on reality? I hadn't been in the house for long, but every time I tried to reason with myself, every time I tried to deny what I was feeling, it grew harder to ignore. I could feel the pressure building, tightening around my chest. The walls seemed to close in, the space shrinking, becoming more oppressive. I turned quickly, desperate to escape, to find someone, anyone who could explain the madness that had taken hold of me. But as I moved down the hallway, I saw it again. The door. Only now it wasn't locked. It was wide open, and the room beyond was dark, its shadow stretching out into the hall, beckoning me. I couldn't move. My body froze as I stared at the open door. I had never seen it like this before. The door had never been there, not like this. It shouldn't have been there, but it was. I felt like I was suffocating. My hands trembled as I reached out, half conscious of what I was doing, but unable to stop myself. I didn't want to go in. I knew better than that. But something in the room, something in that darkness was pulling me closer, as though it knew I couldn't resist. The air around me was heavy now, thick with the same oppressive silence that had filled the house from the very beginning. I felt my heart hammer in my chest, my breath quickening, but my feet wouldn't move. I was standing at the threshold, paralyzed by a sudden and unexplainable terror. I forced my eyes open, forced myself to step forward. I told myself it was just fear that I could control. But deep inside, I knew it was more than that. It wasn't just fear. It was something else. It was a pulling, a need to know, to understand what lay beyond the door. I could almost hear it, feel it, a whisper in my mind scratching at the edges of my thoughts, making my head spin. I looked back over my shoulder, but the house seemed empty. No one else was around. The laughter from the party downstairs felt distant, as if it belonged to a different world. The door beckoned. I walked closer, unable to stop myself. My hand, shaking uncontrollably, reached for the handle, its cold surface sending a shock through my body. I thought I saw something move beyond the doorway, something alive, a shifting shadow. But when I blinked, it was gone. I turned the handle slowly. The door creaked open with an almost painful slowness, as if it too was reluctant to reveal what lay beyond. And then it happened. A face appeared, not mine, but someone else's. A reflection in the mirror inside the room that wasn't supposed to be there. I stepped back, my breath catching in my throat. The face, it was smiling at me, but it wasn't me. The eyes were too wide, too dark, the smile too knowing. I reached out, but the face in the mirror didn't move. It stayed frozen, locked in that smile, as if it had been waiting for me, watching me, and knew something I didn't. I stumbled backward, the world spinning around me. I was suddenly aware of the room around me, the shadows closing in on me, the air too thick to breathe. The whispering came again, only louder now, clearer, closer. It's not real. None of this is real. You can't escape. I stumbled away from the door, my legs unsteady beneath me. I couldn't understand it, but I knew. The house was no longer just a place. It was a prison, a maze of dark, twisted corridors leading only deeper into madness. And just like that, everything changed. What came next was far worse than anything I could have ever imagined. I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know if I was still breathing or if my heart had stopped in that moment. I stood there, frozen, staring at the empty hallway, my mind racing, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. I could still feel the weight of that thing behind me, the reflection in the mirror that wasn't mine, the smile that wasn't mine. I should have known. I should have felt it before I stepped any closer, but now it was too late. I tried to move, but my legs were heavy, like they were made of stone. I couldn't feel my feet, couldn't feel the floor beneath me. My body was betraying me. My mind was already running, but where to? Where was I supposed to go? I had to leave. I had to get away. But the house felt like it was closing in on me. The walls were too high, the doors too far. I heard the soft creak of the floor behind me, and I spun around, panic flooding my veins. But there was nothing. Nothing except the silence. That same oppressive silence that had been smothering me for hours. I took a step back, then another, and finally my body moved of its own accord, carrying me toward the stairs. I didn't care where I was going. I just had to leave the hallway, leave that room, leave the house. I didn't want to face whatever was lurking behind that door. I didn't want to face the truth of what had just happened. But as I reached the top of the stairs, my feet faltered. The door I had seen. It was there. But this time, it wasn't just cracked. It was wide open, standing in the hallway as though it had always been that way. The darkness beyond it seemed to pulse with a strange energy, like something was waiting for me, like it was pulling me closer. I tried to force myself to look away, but my eyes kept coming back to it, drawn to that pitch-black void beyond. Number, I told myself. No more. I had to leave. But then the whispers came. Soft at first. A murmur in the back of my mind. Too quiet to make out. Too distant to be real, but I knew. I knew it wasn't just my thoughts anymore. It was something else. Something that had been inside this house all along, just waiting for me to cross a line. I ran. I don't know how long I ran for, but it felt like hours. My lungs were on fire, my legs trembling beneath me, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't make myself stop. My brain screamed for me to get out, to escape before it was too late. But every step felt heavier than the last. Every breath came faster, more desperate. I threw open a door, not even thinking, and stumbled into a room I didn't recognize. It was too dark to see clearly, but I could feel something wrong about it. The air was thick, suffocating. I couldn't hear anything but my own ragged breathing, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I backed away, searching for a way out, but every door I tried was locked. The feeling of being trapped in a house that was no longer a home, but a prison, washed over me in waves. My skin was clammy. My thoughts were tangled. Every memory, every fear spiraling out of control. I pressed my hand to the wall, trying to steady myself, but as I did, I felt something sharp, something wet beneath my fingertips. I pulled my hand away, my heart racing. I turned on the light, but the room was exactly as it had been before. Dark and still. There was nothing but the shadows, pressing closer, swallowing the space around me. But I knew it wasn't the room that was suffocating me. It was the house itself. It was alive, and it had been waiting for me, waiting for something to break. And then it happened. The air shifted just a little, enough to make my skin crawl. And in the flickering light, I saw it. A face, not mine, not anyone I recognized. But it was there, behind the glass of the light fixture above me. A pale, gaunt face, its features twisted into a grin too wide, too wrong. Its eyes, black, empty holes, stared down at me, unblinking. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My mind was screaming, but the words wouldn't come. The face didn't blink, didn't move. It was just there, watching me. And the longer I stared at it, the more it felt like I wasn't the one looking anymore. I wasn't the one in control. I stumbled backward, my chest tight, as the darkness seemed to creep in, pressing against me from all sides. I could feel it. I could feel the weight of everything, every regret, every mistake, every moment that had led me to this point. The truth was clear now. I had never been in control. The house had been controlling me all along. I turned toward the door, my legs finally obeying, and I bolted from the room back into the hallway. But the walls felt narrower now. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. The house was pulling at me, dragging me deeper, further into its grasp. And then I heard it, the whisper again. It wasn't coming from behind me anymore. It was inside my head. It was me. You shouldn't have come here. You can't leave now. The words echoed, reverberating in my skull, wrapping around my brain like chains. I couldn't escape. I couldn't outrun it. I slammed my fist against the door to the outside, but it wouldn't budge. I couldn't feel the cool night air outside anymore. There was nothing but the suffocating weight of the house, its cold breath on my neck. I turned back to face the hallway. The shadows in the corners of the room were moving now, inching toward me. Something was coming. I could feel it. No, I knew it. I was trapped, and there was no way out. But what happened next would be far worse than anything I could have ever imagined. I thought I was free. I thought walking away from that house would be enough to leave everything behind. But now, every time I close my eyes, I see it. The face, the smile that wasn't mine, still staring at me from the darkness. It's there, in my mind, waiting. No matter how far I run, no matter how much I try to forget, I can feel it. The house, the thing that lives within it, it hasn't left me. And I know, deep down, that it's not over. It will never be over. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I can hear the whispering. It's faint at first, like a distant memory, but it's getting louder. Closer. I don't know if I'll ever escape it. But if I disappear, if you never hear from me again, you'll know why.